Hello, my name is M.W.Burnette. I am a home studio music producer, songwriter, and recording artist, and this is my video diary. I've been talking lately about the new album that I've been working on, Porcelain, which is a Christmas album, but not the type of Christmas album that you typically expect. And the reason why is just because back in Christmas time of 2019, I was just feeling really jaded about Christmas. I was having a hard time kind of connecting with the spiritual elements of it, because something that's occurred to me is that I feel like at Christmas time we don't necessarily celebrate the events that led to Christmas. We don't celebrate the events that are the reason we have Christmas at all. Instead, I feel like we tend to celebrate sort of 1950s post-war Americanism. And even when we do bring the Christmas story into our Christmas celebration, I feel like we're celebrating our celebration of that story rather than celebrating the story itself. It's like we think about the things that we've done in our past of Christmas plays and caroling and, spending time with our families talking about the story more than we spend talking about the story. And the actual drama of that story, I think, tends to get lost a bit. I feel like that story gets kind of whitewashed a bit. Those characters become idealized and they're stripped of their humanity and replaced with just sort of these perfect kind of these characters, these porcelain characters that we can't touch because we might break them, and that's why the name of the album is Porcelain. So anyway, that's kind of my idea, is to take these characters out, humanize them, get them a little bit dirty so that we can relate to them, and so that we can appreciate the message and that story of redemption, or whatever that is embedded within the Christmas story. So I'm excited to talk about today's topic. Today I'm talking about the shepherds, and this is the shepherds. Their story is one that I think really fits what I was just talking about. Is they're kind of play a bit of a bit part in the Christmas story, the way that we know it. Is they're just sort of spectators. It's sort of like in Greek drama, they're kind of the choir that they don't necessarily play an integral role in the things that happen. They don't shape what happens in the story. They're kind of watching it. But something that occurred to me while I was writing this album is that the shepherds are people that we can really relate to. There's a very human element to them that I think gets lost. What I want to say about the shepherds is that they are poor, but they aren't impoverished. They have employment. They have a source of income. So they aren't destitute, but they have a really hard they have a hard time making a living. And I did a little bit of research on this. I'm not going to claim to be a biblical historian or anything like that. So the specifics of my research may not be quite right, but that doesn't matter, because what's important here is the human drama of this story. And so even if the facts aren't entirely correct, the human element of this will be. But so anyway, what I was saying is that the shepherds, their life is such that they may spend weeks at a time away from their family. And while they have a source of income, they don't really have any kind of a roadmap to where they can advance themselves. It's like the life that they're in is the life they're going to be in. They're destined from that, like it's from the time that they're a small child, and I don't know if they become apprentices or whatever, but once they enter that life, that's the life they're going to die in. My dog is in here making noise. Maybe I can cut that little bit out. So anyway, with the shepherds, the life that they're born into and the life that they go into, that's the life they're going to die in. That's their whole life. It's laid out in front of them. And they're never going to rise above that. And I think that's something that we all can really relate to, because so many people in America, not just America, but in the world, but in particular, well, from my perspective today, a lot of Americans find themselves in that same sort of position where there just aren't avenues for them to advance themselves, as they really feel kind of helpless, that the things that they do don't matter. They have no kind of power to shape their future or shape the events of the land where they live. They just have to kind of accept what comes to them. And I think that that's really a powerful part of this story, is that while they are in society, they're not necessarily in society to be pitied the way that, say, a beggar might be or a cripple might be, but they're just sort of low status people. They have a status, but they're low status people, and they have no way to improve that. They're marginalized, ignored members of society, and that's why the name of the song is Invisible, is they're there all the time, but people don't see them. They don't recognize them because they're not important. The things that shepherds do don't shape the future of the country the way that, lawyers or senators or soldiers might. They don't have that kind of power to shape the future. But they are the first people to experience the birth of the incarnate God entering his creation. They are the first people that God shows himself to in physical form that way. And so, as again, a point that I've made through this series is that the way that God views power, the way that God views status, is completely flipped from the way that we do. Is we see people with status who have money, who have authority, who have lots of possessions, and can project a sense of security and I already said authority, but I'm not coming up with a better word. But they have that sort of charisma and an impact on their society, on their world. We see that as being powerful and important, and God doesn't look at things that way. His kingdom is totally backwards. As the people who are important in His kingdom are on the very bottom, they're the servants. They're the people doing that grunt work and getting their hands dirty. And I think that's demonstrated in just this fact, is that when God initiated His kingdom on earth, the people He started with were these people on the lowest rung of that ladder, and everything began from there. So that's what I think is so terrific about the shepherds, and it's something that we kind of skim over in that story. We don't realize how we can relate to them so closely, because all of us feel that way so much of the time, as we feel so small and insignificant. And we look around at the people who are the movers and shakers in our world, and we realize that they are totally unaware of who we are, and the things that we do often seem like they don't matter. Like we have the right to vote, but it feels like our vote doesn't really amount to very much, especially when the guy in the house next door is going to vote and cancel ours. So, we really feel very powerless and insignificant. And so I think we can look at the story of the shepherds and get some hope from that, and realize that even though we feel like our lives don't matter so much, is we have this story of God coming to the shepherds and saying, even though this society that you live in doesn't really value you, I value you. You matter. And I'm showing you that because you are the first people I'm coming to. So anyway, that's my story for today, talking about my album Porcelain, and the song is Invisible. So thank you for sticking around and listening, and I'll see you next time.